Hello, friends. Welcome to the discussion on this topic, pharmaceutical industry, an overview. It's an introduction to product development filing and approval procedures, guidelines, and typical organization of a pharmaceutical industry. A pharmaceutical industry is a commercial business licensed to research, develop, market, and or distribute drugs. They deal in both the generic or brand medicines. A pharmaceutical industry functions subject to a variety of laws and regulations regarding patenting, testing, and marketing of drugs, particularly the prescription drugs. From its beginnings at the start of 19th century, the pharmaceutical industry is now one of the most profitable and influential in existence, attracting praise internationally. How does a pharma company work? A pharmaceutical industry discovers, develops, produces, and markets drugs or pharmaceuticals. The drugs and pharmaceuticals are used as medications. Pharmaceutical companies may deal in generic or brand medications and medical devices. They are subject to a variety of laws and regulations that govern the patenting, testing, safety, efficacy, and marketing of drugs. Drug discovery. What is drug discovery? Process by which drugs are discovered and or designed. In the past, most drugs were discovered either by identifying the active ingredient from traditional remedies or by serendipitously, that is, chance discovery. The newer approach for drug discovery is by understanding how disease and infections are controlled at molecular and physiology level and to target specific entities based on this knowledge. New technologies and data management informatics systems are now employed to speed up this process. Drug development is considered a costly and intensive process. First of all, let us understand the difference between drug discovery and drug development. A drug discovery is modern biotechnology which focuses on understanding the metabolic pathways related to a disease or pathogen and manipulating these pathways using molecular biology or biochemistry. A drug discovery is a great deal of early stage drug discovery that has traditionally been carried out by the universities and research institutions. Drug development refers to activities undertaken after a compound is identified through drug discovery as a potential drug in order to establish its suitability as a medication. Objectives are to determine appropriate formulation and dosing, as well as to establish safety. Research in these areas generally include a combination of in vitro studies and in vivo studies and clinical trials. The cost of late-stage development has meant it is usually done by the larger pharmaceutical companies. So while the initial drug discovery can be done at the university and research institutions, the later drug development activities are generally taken up by pharmaceutical companies. Drug discovery is often large multinational corporations exhibit vertical integration, participating in a broad range of drug discovery and development, manufacturing, and quality control, marketing, sales, and distribution. Smaller organizations, on the other hand, focuses on a specific aspect such as discovering drug candidates or developing formulations. Often collaborative agreements between research organizations and large pharmaceutical companies are formed to explore the potential of new drug substances. Examples are several vaccines development and drug candidate development for the COVID-19. Most recently, multinationals are increasingly relying on contract research organizations to manage their drug development process. Drug discovery is very expensive. Of all compounds investigated for use in humans, only a small fraction are eventually approved in most nations by government appointed medical institutions or boards who have to approve the new drugs before they can be marketed in those countries. This approval comes only after heavy investment in preclinical development and clinical trials, as well as a commitment to ongoing safety monitoring. They include preclinical studies in animal models, thereafter establishing safety and efficacy in lab models, animal models, with no toxicity or very less toxicity in different organs, in animals, or in vitro cell line models. Further study in humans are done upon getting approval from the regulatory bodies. The clinical study in humans involve four different stages. Phase 1, that is carried out only in healthy individuals, 10 to 12 healthy individuals, to establish the dose and safety. Thereafter, phase 2 is done on a wider population of patients, that is approximately 50 patients, to establish the safety, efficacy, and side effects. Upon predictive outcomes of phase 2, phase 3 permission is obtained from regulatory bodies. A phase 3 study is generally undertaken on large patient population, approximately 500 to 1000 patients. It is during this stage only that the side effects and adverse effects are noted. Upon successful phase 3, the approval for license for licensing for marketing is obtained. Once the drug is launched in the market, post-marketing surveillance or phase 4 clinical trials is done. Phase 4 of pharmacovigilance study is done to establish the side effects and adverse effects better because they are done on a wider population. They help to actually conclude the additional side effects or adverse effects in specific population, specific age group of population, or specific race. A typical product approval cycle in US is as described below. In the United States, the new pharmaceutical products must be approved by the Food and Drug Administration, US FDA. They have to conclude that the drug is both safe and effective. This process generally involves submission of an investigational new drug filing with a sufficient preclinical data to support proceedings with human trials. Following an IND approval, three phases of progressively larger human clinical trials may be conducted. Phase 1 generally studies toxicity using healthy volunteers. Phase 2 include pharmacokinetic and dosing in patients. Phase 3 is a very large study of efficacy and in the intended patient population. Following the successful completion of phase 3, a new drug application is submitted to the Food and Drug Administration. The US FDA reviewed the data as if the product is seen as having a positive benefit risk assessment. Approval to market the product in the US is granted. A fourth phase of post approval surveillance is also often required due to the fact that even the largest clinical trials cannot effectively predict the prevalence of rare side effects in specific age group or race. Post marketing surveillance ensures that after marketing, the safety of a drug is established in a wider population and the benefits surpass the risks. In the UK, the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agencies approve the drugs for use through the evaluation done by EMA, European Medicine Agency. It's an agency of the European Union based in London. Normally, an approval in the UK and other European countries come later than one in the USA. Then it is the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence NICE for England and Wales who decide if and how the National Health Service will allow their use. The British National Formulary is the core guide for pharmacists. Now let us see what patents and generic mean for a pharmaceutical industry. Depending upon a number of considerations, a company may apply for and be granted a patent for a drug or the process of producing a drug, granting exclusivity rights typically for about 20 years. Only after rigorous study and testing, which takes about 10 to 15 years on an average, will the government authorities grant permission for a company to market and sell the drug. Patent protection enables the owner of the patent to recover the cost of research and development through high profit margins for these branded drugs. When the patent protection for the drug expires, a generic drug is usually developed and sold by a competing company. The development and approval of generics is less expensive, allowing them to be sold at a lower price. Often, the owner of the branded drugs will introduce a generic version before the patent expires in order to get a head start in the generic market. Restructuring has therefore become routine, driven by the patent expiration of products launched during the industry's golden era in the 90s and the company's failure to develop sufficient new blockbuster products to replace the lost revenues. Now let us see what is good manufacturing practices. The pharmaceutical industry is bound by the laws to follow good manufacturing practices. All the regulatory authorities in different countries ensure that a pharmaceutical industry follows good manufacturing practices. In India, it is Schedule M of the Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940 that lists down all the guidelines for good manufacturing practices. Good manufacturing practices are the practices required in order to conform to guidelines recommended by agencies that control authorization and licensing for manufacture and sale of food, drug products, and active pharmaceutical ingredients. Good manufacturing practice is a system for ensuring that products are consistently produced and controlled according to quality standards. It is designed to minimize the risks involved in any pharmaceutical production that cannot be eliminated through testing the final product. Good manufacturing practices, GMP, also referred to as CGMP, Current Good Manufacturing Practice, is the aspect of quality assurance that ensures that medicinal products are consistently produced and controlled to the quality standards appropriate to the intended use and as required by the product specification. Good practice regulations as basis of GXP software. The X in the GXP is a variable that stands for manufacturing or clinical or laboratory or clinical laboratory. GXP generally refers to good manufacturing practice, GLP, good laboratory practice, and GCP, or good clinical practice, regulations and guidelines established by the US FDA. Good laboratory practice is a set of principles intended to assure the quality and integrity of non clinical laboratory studies that are intended to support research or marketing permits for products regulated by government agencies. Good clinical practice is an international, ethical, and scientific quality standard for designing, conducting, recording, and reporting trials that involve the participation of human subjects. These are the functions within a pharmaceutical company. A typical pharmaceutical company has the following departments or functions. First, it is from the intellectual property cell, a product is identified, which is in a generic industry, it is the patent products for which the patent is close to expiry. Upon identification of the product, it is then the information is sent to the chemical research department. The chemical research or the CRD department develops the active drug substance, synthesizes it in their laboratories at the lab scale, gives this synthesized active drug substance to the product development department. Here, the active drug substance is formulated into the desired dosage form, whichever physical dosage form is desired, or whether an NDDS product needs to be developed. Once the product is developed by the product development department, the product is sent to the analytical research department in order to carry out the quality control test for that particular dosage form as per the pharmacopoeial monograph or as per general chapters in the pharmacopoeia. Upon the method development and upon the analysis of the products, they are also evaluated for animal toxicity studies. This is, however, not done for a molecule which is more than 4 years old in the market. However, for new drug substance, a drug safety evaluation is done in animal models. Thereafter, a bioequivalence typical generic industry needs to carry out a bioequivalence study proving the product is bioequivalent in human subjects to the innovator. So all these human studies are done and all the analysis and evaluation of human plasma samples are done at clinical pharmacokinetics and pharmacology lab. When all this data is generated, then all the reports, chemistry, manufacturing controls, animal studies, and human studies, bioequivalent studies, all of them are compiled into a report and a CTD is prepared by a regulatory affairs department. The dossier, common technical document dossier, is then filed with regulatory authorities of that particular country, depending upon the country where the license for marketing is desired. This activity is overseen by Regulatory Affairs Department. All the leaflets and the summary of product characteristics, patient information leaflet and product information leaflet are prepared by Medical and Clinical Affairs Department. Medical and Clinical Affairs Department also takes care of the pharmacovigilance or marketing surveillance studies also. A specific marketing department is also there. The marketing network present within the country and internationally throughout the world helps a pharma company to distribute the products to all the countries wherever they have obtained the license for marketing. A specific supply chain department is also attached to every pharmaceutical company, which oversees all the raw materials, packaging materials supply to a pharmaceutical company and shipment from a pharmaceutical company to all the wholesalers or retailers. A specific quality assurance department is also there with every pharmaceutical company. Quality and data compliance department, they oversee all the documentations in all the departments, whether all the documentation, good manufacturing practices, good clinical practices, good laboratory practices, and all the other guidelines which has been laid down by the specific regulatory bodies in different countries have been closely followed. That brings us to the end of the discussion. Thank you for your time.